My name is Julia Carver, and I'm a federal judge. I wasn't planning to make that public tonight, but when Judge Thomas Reed looked across the table, reached for my hand, and said, "Your Honor, good to see you again." Every conversation I had avoided for 13 years ended right there. Vanessa's smile froze. The wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered across the linen. I didn't flinch. I'd been waiting for that sound longer than she knew. She had warned me hours earlier not to embarrass her. "Mark's family moves in elite circles," she'd said, smoothing her hair like reputation could be ironed. "Just say you work in law." "Julia, keep it vague." I told her I would, because silence was easier than argument. But when I saw Judge Reed walk in, my promise began to feel like perjury. Dinner was a performance she had rehearsed for weeks, her laughter a little too loud, her hand on Mark's arm too possessive. My parents sat stiffly beside her, proud of the daughter who married upward, barely acknowledging the one who stayed invisible. Vanessa introduced me like a footnote. "My sister. She works in government law." Judge Reed's eyes found mine. Recognition flickered. "Your Honor," he said softly, and the table went still. In that silence, everything shifted. My mother's fork clattered. Mark blinked, and Vanessa whispered, "What did you just call her?" I could have lied again, but truth had waited long enough. "He called me what I am," I said quietly. "A federal judge." The air fractured like glass meeting flame. For once, Vanessa had no script, no recovery line, no way to lower me without sinking herself. I held her gaze and thought, this dinner is going to be the cleanest trial I've ever conducted. Vanessa had always been the star, the one who knew how to turn ordinary life into performance. She filled every room with a certainty that demanded applause, her laughter echoing off walls lined with curated perfection. "People admire success when it looks effortless," she used to say, adjusting the angle of her wine glass for the best reflection. I learned early that her definition of effort was pretending the cracks didn't exist. When she called me before the dinner, her tone was clipped, managerial. "Mark's family is used to a certain level of sophistication. Julia, don't mention your job too much, they won't understand government work." I asked if the truth might stand on its own. But she laughed softly. "Only if it sparkles." That was Vanessa polish before substance, control before connection. Our parents followed her lead, rehearsing admiration as if love required choreography. "Your sister's done so well," my mother reminded me on the phone. "Just try not to draw attention away from her." I promised I wouldn't, though I wondered how invisibility could possibly outshine a spotlight. My father added, "You know how she gets about appearances. Let her have her moment." It was never about moments, it was about hierarchy. At dinner, she glowed in a gold silk dress that caught the light like intention. She kept one manicured hand on Mark's arm, speaking in that practiced cadence of someone auditioning for a life already cast. "Mark's father clerked for the Supreme Court," she said proudly, as if proximity to power could transfer through marriage. I sipped my water, listening, while my mother beamed and my father nodded in rhythm to her ambition. When the waiter poured wine, Vanessa leaned close and whispered, "Remember, if anyone asks, you just say law." I smiled and said, "Understood." It was the same answer I'd given her my whole life agreement dressed as peace. But watching her perform, I realized the entire table believed the fiction because I had never corrected the script. For years I had let her narrate who I was, thinking silence was mercy. That night, silence was about to become the most dangerous truth in the room. The table gleamed beneath soft light, a perfect stage for Vanessa's performance. She laughed too loudly, spoke too quickly, and praised every read at the table as though she'd rehearsed the lines. "Mark's father once clerked for the Supreme Court," she said, her voice laced with practiced admiration. Imagine having that kind of legacy. Judge Reed smiled politely, but his eyes flicked toward me with the calm precision of someone who already knew how the story would end. I kept my tone neutral when Catherine asked, "Yulia, what kind of law do you work in?" Before I could answer, Vanessa jumped in. "Oh, government work. Nothing exciting," she said. Waving a dismissive hand, Catherine tilted her head. "Federal or state?" I said evenly. "Federal." Vanessa's laugh was brittle. "It's just administrative. She's comfortable there." "Oh." The waiter poured wine, and I could feel the temperature shift beneath the conversation. Judge Reed set down his glass and spoke lightly. "Federal work isn't exactly administrative." "Is it?" Vanessa smiled too wide. "Oh, you know how families exaggerate. Julia's modest." Catherine's eyes lingered on me. "You seem anything but modest." "I met her, Gazi. You'd be surprised what people can hide when no one's looking." Mark tried to change the subject. "So, about the wedding venue," but his father's voice cut through. Calm and deliberate. "Your Honor," he said, turning toward me. "It's been a long time." The sound of the title hit the table like a gavel. My mother's fork clattered, and Vanessa froze. "What did you just call her?" she asked, her voice cracking. I didn't look away. "He called me what I am, a federal judge." "Dollars." For a moment, no one breathed. Catherine blinked, already pulling out her phone. Vanessa's laugh returned, high and panicked. "That's ridiculous." "Yulia, stop joking." Judge Reed's tone was measured. "I assure you, she's not joking." Catherine turned her screen toward them, my name shining beneath a headline, "Judge Julia Carver, United States District Court, Western District of Washington." My mother's lips parted in disbelief. "Julia, why didn't you tell us?" I took a sip of water. Steady and deliberate. "Because you never asked." Vanessa's color drained as she whispered, "You made me look like a fool." I said, "No, Vanessa, you did that yourself." Judge Reed folded his hands, his voice firm but courteous. "Miss Carver, you've raised two remarkable daughters. But perhaps it's time to see which one values truth over appearances." The words hung like verdicts. My father cleared his throat, reaching for a line that no longer existed. Mark looked at Vanessa, searching for the woman he thought he knew. She stared at me, eyes wide, hands trembling, mouth opening but finding no defense. I set down my napkin, my voice low but final. "You wanted the room to see you as extraordinary, Vanessa. Now they do. Just not in the way you hoped." The silence that followed was absolute, the kind that ends a trial before anyone can appeal. Vanessa's voice broke first, sharp and frantic. "You can't be a federal judge. Julia, you've been lying for years." My mother turned pale, staring at me as if the shape of her daughter had changed in front of her eyes. "Is it true?" she whispered. And I said, "Yes. 13 years on the bench. Appointed in 2011. You just never asked." "Ah." My father leaned back, disbelief fighting pride. "You sent a senator to prison," he said slowly, recalling the headline now reflected on Catherine's phone. "He was taking bribes." I answered, "It was my job." Vanessa slammed her hand on the table. "You humiliated me. You let me look like an idiot in front of Mark's family." I met her glare. "You didn't need my help to do that." Judge Reed's tone was even but unyielding. "What's humiliating isn't her success. It's that you never saw it." Vanessa's eyes darted toward him. "You don't understand. She deceived us." He studied her calmly. No. She let your assumptions speak for you. The room grew smaller. The clinking of glasses from other tables sounding miles away. Catherine spoke next. Voice cool and precise. Public record shows your sister's ruling cited in appellate decisions. She's one of the youngest judges confirmed in her circuit. My mother's hand trembled as she read the search results. Julia, why hide it from us? I kept my tone steady. Because you preferred the version where I was smaller. You all did, my father said. We just wanted harmony, I replied. Harmony built on denial isn't peace, it's surrender. Oh. Vanessa turned to Mark. Desperate. Say something. Tell them this is insane. Mark's jaw tightened. I don't know what to say, he admitted. Every story you told me about her was a lie. Vanessa's breath caught. I was protecting our image. He looked away. From what truth? Judge Reed folded his hands. The gavel in his voice unmistakable. Ms. Carver. Integrity doesn't embarrass a family. Pretending does. Vanessa tried to laugh. But it cracked into silence. You think you're better than us, she said. Voice shaking. I answered softly. No. I just stopped pretending I was less. My mother whispered. We were proud of Vanessa, I said. You could have been proud of both of us. For the first time. No one spoke over me. The quiet wasn't respect, it was reckoning. Judge Reed turned to my parents. You raised 2 daughters, he said. One who performs, one who endures. Tonight, you learned which one commands a courtroom. My father stared at his plate. My mother looked at Vanessa. Then at me. As if realizing the power she'd dismissed had been sitting beside her all along. I placed my napkin beside my plate. Deliberate. Final. I won't apologize for earning what you never cared to see, I said. Vanessa's lip quivered. Her voice barely a whisper. You've ruined everything. I stood, meeting her eyes. No. Vanessa. I just stopped hiding. You did the rest. The silence that followed was judgment enough, no jury required. The next morning, my phone buzzed with messages that felt like verdicts. My mother's voice trembled through one of them. Julia, why would you keep something so important from us? My father's was sharper, accusing me of humiliating the family. Then came Vanessa's furious. Fragmented, Mark's reconsidering. His parents think I'm shallow. You destroyed everything. It's not Wither Way. I ignored the calls until Catherine's name appeared. My parents aren't judging you, she said calmly when I answered. They're judging her reaction. My father said it was the most composed dismantling he's ever witnessed. I let out a short breath. It wasn't composure. It was exhaustion finally ending. She laughed softly. Either way. You earned more respect in one dinner than some do in a lifetime. Creed. Later that afternoon, Judge Reed called. I wanted to apologize for last night's discomfort. He began. But I stopped him. No apology needed. Your Honor, truth has its own timing. He hesitated. Catherine mentioned inviting you to join the Judicial Reform Task Force. It would be a privilege to have you. I said yes, realizing the irony of being recognized first by strangers for what my family had ignored for years. Vanessa texted again that night. You've ruined my relationship. And now our parents can't show their faces at the club. Hope you're proud. I typed a single line before deleting it. Then set the phone face down. Some lessons didn't require a reply. Silence was still my sharpest argument. Only now it was a choice, not a shield. The following week, Catherine and I met for coffee. Mark's struggling, she admitted. He's realizing he didn't really know her. I nodded. He will. Truth's a slow teacher. She looked at me. thoughtful. You're not angry? I said. No. Anger keeps you tied to the same story. I'm rewriting mine. Do know him. When I returned to my chambers, sunlight streaked across my desk. For the first time, the quiet didn't feel like hiding, it felt earned. The chaos of family. The years of invisibility. The dinner that ended it all, they had stripped everything unnecessary. I sat down, opened the new case file, and smiled faintly. Justice had always been my work. That night, it had finally become my life. 3 months later, my clerk buzzed to say Vanessa was in the lobby. I told her to send her in, already knowing what apology would sound like before hearing it. Vanessa stepped inside, wearing jeans and an oversized sweatshirt. Eyes rimmed red. Mark ended it. She said flatly. He said he can't marry someone who measures worth by comparison. I folded my hands. Maybe he's right. Maybe it's time you stop measuring anyone at all. She looked around my chambers, eyes lingering on the law books and framed degrees. This is really your office, she said softly, like the truth still felt fictional. All those years, you were this. I nodded. I was this the whole time. Her voice cracked. You could have told me. I met her gaze. You could have asked. The silence that followed carried more honesty than our family ever had. Vanessa sank into the chair across from me. Mark said I treated you like you were beneath me, she whispered. I didn't realize how cruel I sounded. I said, you didn't think you were cruel. You thought you were superior. She blinked hard. I don't know how to fix that. I leaned back. Start by finding out who you are without needing someone to stand below you. Her shoulders sagged. I ruined everything. I shook my head. You revealed everything. There's a difference. At the door, she paused. Her voice small. For what it's worth. I'm proud of you. I just didn't see it before. I said. You weren't looking. When she left, the room felt lighter, as if the air had decided whose truth it belonged to. I returned to my desk, the quiet humming steady around me. Some verdicts don't come from a courtroom, they come from finally being seen. That evening, I stood by the window of my townhouse, the city light reflecting against the glass like a quiet verdict. Michael called, asking, how do you feel? And I said, free. He paused before answering. Then you finally won. I smiled. Winning had never been the point. It was the silence that followed the kind, not born of fear, but peace that felt like truth. For years I'd hidden to keep others comfortable. But freedom, I realized, isn't granted by recognition. It begins the moment you stop apologizing for being seen. Thank you for staying with me through this story of truth, pride, and freedom. If you've ever been underestimated, remember your worth doesn't need permission to exist. It only needs recognition. Subscribe for more stories that remind us that sometimes silence isn't surrender, it's the beginning of power.